to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Former super middleweight champion Gilberto Ramirez aims to make a statement against Joe Smith to prove worth at cruiserweight against what is a former light heavyweight like himself. A former light heavyweight champion. You know, Zurdo was a champion at 168. Joe was a champion at 175.
So they're both former champions.
This fight marks my move up to the cruiserweight division, Ramirez explained. This decision is based on a combination of factors that my team and I carefully considered. One of the main reasons is my natural growth and development as an athlete. As I've progressed during my career, I've gained muscle mass and strength,
making it more suitable for me to compete in a cruiserweight division.
Additionally, we believe that this move will provide exciting new challenges and opportunities for me. The cruiserweight division is known for its competitive and diverse talent pool, and I'm eager to test my skills against opponents with different styles and strengths. This transition also aligns with my long-term goals in the sport, and I'm confident that I'll be able to make a positive impact in the cruiserweight division.
I often think of the cruiserweight division as a lifesaver when the glamour weights are being less than glamorous.
Like what's going on right now between Shakur Stevenson and Frank Martin. Rather, what's not going on down there at lightweight, how the middleweight division is a dud.
Light heavyweight division has certainly cooled off.
Zurdo continued, I've worked closely with my coaches and trainers to ensure a smooth transition in terms of training, strategy, and overall preparation. While it is a new chapter in my career, I'm embracing the change and looking forward to proving myself at cruiserweight. Ramirez hasn't fought since his unsuccessful challenge last November against World Boxing Association light heavyweight champion Dmitry Bivol. The night of this fight, it will have been roughly 11 months since that fight.
Almost a year.
It's not because Golden Boy Promotions was asleep at the wheel. Zurdo was set to return earlier this year opposite the ring, Gabriel Rosado, but he missed weight, and he missed it by a lot. That was supposed to be a light heavyweight contest.
Missed it by a lot.
He was supposed to come in at 175, and he came in at a whopping 182 pounds. That means he missed the mark by a whopping 7 pounds. You hear about guys missing it by a pound or maybe a half a pound, but 7?
Was he even trying to make the weight?
I have nothing but respect for Joe, Ramirez said. He is a hard hitter and a former world champion. But when I made this move to cruiserweight, I specifically asked my promoter for the toughest guys in the division to create a path to a world title fight. I'm a fighter, and there has never been a fight I've dodged or turned down in my career, and this is no different.
He says that he asked Golden Boy Promotions for one of the toughest guys at the weight, but Joe Smith Jr. is not a cruiserweight. He's a light heavyweight moving up in weight, the same as Zurdo.
I've got nothing against the fight. I actually like the fight. It's one of the few fights on the calendar that I'm looking forward to, but that's a bit disingenuous to say you asked for the best guys at the weight and you're fighting a light heavyweight moving up like yourself.
Come on.
Of course, any fight at this level will definitely shape the future and the next possible steps. I know how hard the stakes are, and I want to prove to myself that I can be a world champion in this division, and it's possible. I mean, if Badu Jack, at his age, he used to campaign at super middle, the same as Zurdo, then he went to light heavyweight, the same as Zurdo, and now he's at cruiser.
WBC champion.
Heading up to bridgerweight now based on reports to challenge that division's only champion, Lukas Rozanski of Poland. If Badu Jack at age 40 or 41, whatever it is, if he could become a champion there, then you could give Zurdo Ramirez reasonable odds to become one as well.
It's possible.
It's been approximately 7 years since Zurdo Ramirez made history, becoming the first Mexican-born super middleweight champion in the history of that weight class, of that division. I think he would be the first Mexican-born cruiserweight champion.
If he were to become a champion there, it's important to note that the Joe Smith Jr. fight, that's not a title fight. That just kicks off Zurdo's cruiserweight campaign.
There is a chance that, depending on what happens between Badu Jack and Lukas Rozanski, whether Badu Jack wins or Badu Jack loses or Badu Jack retires, he may vacate the WBC title that he currently holds at cruiserweight.
That's Zurdo's opening.
Zurdo Ramirez, who towered over most of the super middleweights and light heavyweights around, but at cruiserweight, that is an advantage that he won't have. He won't be the biggest guy in the room anymore.
That's why he's easing himself into that division with another light heavyweight like himself. in Joe Smith Jr. Decent-sized guy. He's a big boy, but once again, he's not one of the top cruiserweights.
And he's on the bounce the same way that Zurdo's on the bounce. Zurdo's coming off that lopsided loss to Dimitri Bivol, and Joe's coming off that knockout loss over a year ago to Artur Beterbiev.
Don't let those losses fool you. This is a good fight. It has all the makings of an all-action shootout between two action fighters.
Not necessarily two of the biggest names in the sport. No, not two of the biggest, but still a thoroughly entertaining fight, or at least a fight that has the makings of one. You know, this fight, the upcoming Otto Wallin versus Murat Gassiev fight. These are the kind of fights that turn out to be entertaining fights, even though they're flying low on the radar, while some would rather bicker over whose fault it is that Frank Martin burnt the beans.
Fuck it.
Good fights are still happening, just perhaps not at the glamour weights like lightweight or middleweight.
The heavyweight division's been kind of a dud, too.
This is an interesting fight, this fight between Zurdo and Joe Smith Jr. A step in the direction of a cruiserweight title. I am leaning towards Zurdo to win the fight because he's a more prolific puncher than Joe. They're both pressure fighters, but mid-range to inside, Zurdo is more the combination puncher than Joe Smith Jr. Joe's been out of action longer than Zurdo as well.
Now, Joe hits hard.
Joe can crack, he's got strength. But I've seldom ever seen Zurdo Ramirez hurt. We saw him get outboxed by Dimitri Bivol, but we didn't see him hurt. I've never seen him down, and he's never been out.
He's the house fighter.
If the rounds are close, if the rounds are tight, I've no doubts that the house fighter will get optimal consideration. So I am leaning towards Zurdo Ramirez here.
Look for this next month in October.
Elsewhere in the cruiserweight division, Jai Opetaia says, I know that Jordan Thompson, is dangerous, but I'm coming for war.
This will be Jai Opetaia's maiden voyage, his maiden defense as a reigning champion, a year after he became champion.
In what was the Mayris Briedis fight, an excellent fight. His first defense as a reigning champion and his first fight under the Matchroom banner. That's just my mindset. I'm not coming in for an easy fight. I'm coming to earn the respect from the fans. I know I'm not that well known over there in England, and Jordan Thompson is a great opponent, so with us two showcasing our best, we will only earn respect. It's a huge opportunity for me. I'm excited for this potential UK debut because I love the fans. I love the sport. I want people to say, that's a great fighter when I leave there.
One tough motherfucker.
It's what people were saying immediately after the Mayris Briedis fight, when people realized that for a few of those rounds, those later rounds, Jai Opetaia was fighting with a broken jaw. Not just broken, but broken in two places.
He's tough.
And he's a crafty southpaw, a skilled boxer with speed, athleticism, and movement sharpness. Though how sharp will he be the night of this fight?
Over a year after the Mayris Briedis fight.
This is a slightly different tune than the tune that Jai Opetaia's handlers were singing. I think it was Mick Francis when they were still dealing with Richard Riakporhe to do a Richard Riakporhe fight. I remember hearing that they wanted Jai's first title defense to be in his own neck of the woods in Australia. As it stands, he's making his UK debut.
Just not with Richard.
With Jordan Thompson. I feel like their cup is full and they are trying to keep it full, but mine is only half full at the moment. I've got a lot of growth and I'm excited to show that I'm the best cruiserweight in the world. They're all behind me. I feel like the UK has a lot of them, but I don't really waste time looking at people who aren't in front of me. I'm on a mission to get all these belts. I'm on a mission to unify this division. So whoever has the belts, that's who I want. But we are just focused and locked in on September 30th. We'll get the others later, but all my energy is going towards September 30th. I'm going to come over there, and I'm going to come at 100% with my best performance.
Getting all the belts could prove tricky for Jai, even if he makes his way past Jordan Thompson.
We'll get to that fight. We'll talk about that. But let's just say that Jai Opetaia wins, and let's say he stays IBF champion. Getting the other belts could prove tricky because two of them are over there on the Sky Sports and Boxer side of things. That's where Chris Billum-Smith, reigning WBO champion, is, and about 5 days ago,
I saw a story that indicated Boxer had signed reigning WBA champion Arsen Goulamarian. That not only were they pursuing a Richard Riakporhe versus Arsen Goulamarian fight, but they actually signed Arsen.
And that would give them two of the four major titles at this weight.
Jai Opetaia, he's on the Matchroom and DAZN side of things with the IBF, and Badu Jack.
He's got the WBC, and he's with Skills Challenge, currently heading north of cruiserweight up to Bridger to take on Poland's own Bridgerweight champion, Lukas Rozenski.
I see a situation where Irrespective of what happens with Rosansky in the near future, Badu Jack may retire. The WBC title might go vacant. If things work out for Zurdo, he becomes WBC champion.
It's possible.
I'm sure that Mauricio Suleiman and the World Boxing Council, a Mexican-based alphabet organization, would love to see a Mexican cruiserweight champion crowned. I don't think there's ever been one.
Caveat is he's a Golden Boy Promotions fighter, not a Matchroom fighter. So even if he is fighting on the DAZN platform, that doesn't necessarily mean that Jai Opetaia, should he beat Jordan Thompson, will have access.
Access to Zurdo.
Though I am getting ahead of myself a bit, because this all relies on the presupposition that Zurdo beats Joe, and not only does he beat Joe, but eventually he becomes WBC champion. That could be several months from now.
For now, Jai's got to take care of business with Jordan Thompson.
It's what he's got to focus on. That's what he's got to do, because the rest of his career and reign as a champion is on the other side of that fight. Upstairs at heavyweight, Eddie Hearn says our full focus is to sign the Deontay Wilder fight for Anthony Joshua, what still is one of the biggest fights in boxing, not just in the UK market or the American market, but the global market. If you made this fight, I think a lot of people around the world would stop to watch.
But it's hit a snag.
Eddie Hearn, promoter for heavyweight Anthony Joshua, will continue to push forward to lock down a finalized deal for a January clash with Deontay Wilder. The discussions to make Joshua versus Wilder have been dragging on for some time. It's slow, I won't lie. Obviously, it's a massive fight, and these things take time. Everything is kind of agreed other than the signing of the paperwork. We know that takes time, especially in that part of the world.
Saudi Arabia.
Something in Saudi has changed. Perhaps there's been a shift in the axis of power and who's managing the money that goes into these big sports shows, these events that they're trying to bring over to Saudi.
But something's happened.
Here in the West, most will defer to their lazy arguments, their go-to arguments that this is somehow Eddie Hearns' fault or Matchroom's fault, when Matchroom ain't the one bankrolling the show.
The Saudis are, or they were supposed to be.
For me, the biggest concern is AJ wants to fight in December or January. We know the Wilder fight is not going to happen in December, so we're happy to wait until January. But if that fight starts pushing back to February or March, don't be surprised if he still signs for that fight, but has another one in between, Hearn said. He's loving the activity at the moment. He's loving being in training camp. He's loving working with Derek James. But our full focus is to sign the Deontay Wilder fight. I'm not disappointed, but we want to get it done.
It won't be hard for AJ to find someone to fight. Eddie Hearn already pitched the idea that if the Wilder fight doesn't happen in timely fashion, he might fight Filip Hrgovic or have a rubber match with Andy Ruiz.
For Wilder, the situation is a bit more dire. Eddie Hearn added, terms are agreed, but until we receive a contract, the fight is not happening.
Up until now, things were looking positive on both sides of the aisle. The Wilder side, the AJ side, everything was good.
We've agreed to terms for Joshua versus Wilder, but until we receive a contract, the fight is not happening, Hearn told Boxing King Media. Politically, it sounds like there's a lot going on. For us, we are ready to take that fight. Wilder's co-manager Shelly Finkel and I have spoken. They are ready to take that fight. It just doesn't have to happen in Saudi Arabia. There are now other talks about other countries that it could take place in. There is a movement of management and ownership of boxing in Saudi, and it's up to them what they want to do. If they don't want to do Joshua versus Wilder, maybe it goes elsewhere.
We know that Frank Warren and Bob Arum were recently in that part of the world, and we know that they seem to have inked some kind of deal.
Something has changed, and His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh.
Until now, the face of Skills Challenge has been Prince Khalid bin Abdulaziz.
But very recently we saw both Frank Warren and Bob Arum in that region of the world next to His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh.
So something has changed.
I don't know all the ins and outs, but something has changed as far as who's in charge of all the money and what it goes into. These are the people that are bankrolling the upcoming Tyson Fury versus Francis Ngannou fight.
Eddie Hearn continued.
There is a movement of management and ownership of boxing in Saudi, and it's up to them what they want to do. If they don't want to do Joshua versus Wilder, maybe it goes somewhere else. It's one of the biggest fights in heavyweight boxing. We are being told they do want to do it. I really wouldn't be surprised if Joshua ended up fighting Fury.
I would.
I'd be surprised because when Tyson Fury very recently spoke to Michelle Joy Phelps at the presser for the Ngannou fight, he blew off the idea of fighting Anthony Joshua.
Said he wants to fight John Bones Jones next.
Deontay Wilder's trainer Malik Scotch on snags in the Joshua fight, it's a real frustrating situation.
So close and yet so far away.
You see, for Anthony Joshua, who still has a lot of marquee value, it's not all riding on a Wilder fight. There are plenty of other fighters that would happily share the ring with him and make a lot of money in the process.
He would too.
He does, whether you like him or not. That's why he was on the Forbes list.
Why is that important?
It's important because, unfortunately for Deontay, he doesn't have the marquee value here in America that Anthony has in the United Kingdom, and at his age, because remember, he is several years older than Anthony. He's not going to fight just anybody.
At his age, he's looking for the biggest fights so he can get the biggest purses.
The biggest purse.
For him, that's the AJ fight.
They tried to do the fight with Andy Ruiz, but regardless of whose version of the story you go with, what's consistent is they could not satisfy Andy's financial demands. They couldn't get him the kind of money that he wanted.
Deontay Wilder is not in America here and now what AJ still is in the United Kingdom and the world.
It's a real frustrating situation to me. Out of everybody, Deontay is the one that, as far as activity, is the one that misses out. Scott told ES News. It's a lot of promises, but it seems the promises are being broken a little bit. We'll see.
So why doesn't he just fight somebody else in the meantime?
Because he can't fight just anybody else and make the kind of money that he wants to make.
Not just anybody.
Doesn't work like that. Not for Deontay Wilder. You know, Anthony can go in there with a Jermaine Franklin or a Robert Helenius and still make a decent chunk of change.
But here in America,
you know, I expected that more people were going to buy Wilder's big comeback fight against Robert Helenius, and I was shocked at how much it underperformed at the box office.
to get him out of bed, to get him the kind of money that he wants, you're gonna have to put him on pay-per-view. But here and now,
I mean, aside from the Anthony Joshua fight, while they wait for that situation to sort itself out in Saudi, to see what the Saudis are going to do, as far as a keep busy fight for Deontay, what keep busy fight gets him the kind of money that he wants?
what fight?
So when you ask yourself, why doesn't he just fight someone else while he waits? Why doesn't he take a few keep busy fights like Anthony has?
Because he doesn't have the same marquee value that Anthony has.
For the abundance of options, there's still plenty of heavyweights that are willing to fight Anthony because they know they stand to make a lot of money in doing so, whereas with Deontay,
Not so much.
he is several years older than Anthony. Time's not on his side.
Nope.
Him and his team need to make a decision. They need to do something.